let's talk about these coaching interviews from a couple of days ago. Very interesting because they're informal in the sense like the Niners don't put them on their website. They don't transcribe them. They don't put the audio, don't put the video. It's almost like they didn't happen.
Right.
We put the video on our website, and then the Niners politely asked us to take it down after 24 hours, which is sort of like a league rule that they invoke very rarely. So for whatever reason, the Niners like wanted us to talk to their position coaches, but like didn't want anyone to know about it, which is just super strange. So I guess now that it's like a rumor that you can't even find those interviews if you wanted to. Now it's a rumor. Let's talk about our impressions of the interviews that never happened. What stood out to you that day?
I don't even know that I heard anything. I see nothing. I hear nothing.
Like, what was so...
That's a great question. I mean, it's funny. We should compare notes and go through and say, what was the most revealing quote that you got? What was the most revealing quote that I got? I would say probably when I asked Brian Griese about Brock, he was like, hey, he kept saying, and he said it 2 or 3 times, there's a reason we drafted this guy. There's a reason we drafted this guy. And so
that's interesting.
And when I
saw it a different way. Go
ahead.
I thought he was not particularly enthusiastic about Brock. I thought he was giving Brock backhanded compliments. Like, we
didn't. Just for full disclosure, you were in the group.
I was there first.
And there were a lot more people around.
That's true. He talked for a while.
Branch and Barrows, and we didn't talk specifically that much about Brock. But go ahead. What did you? Because I wasn't there for your sit down with him. What did he say about Brock?
So, I asked the first question of the interview, and it's about Sam, and he really lays it on thick with Sam. Like, basically, here's what I have the quotes right here. I transcribed them. With Sam, he says, I think everybody that knows football or watches football can see the skill set that Sam has. To me, it was about, can we give him the structure and stability upon which that he can see how good of a player he can be? I think that our system, our offense, it's tailor-suited to a quarterback coming in and finding their footing and getting stability, which is just a hilarious thing. Like, what about Trey Lance? What are you talking about? But Darnold is going to come in. So he's all in with Darnold. Anyone that knows football can see the skill set. Then the next question's about Brock. This is from Tracy Sandler. She says, how unusual was it for someone in Brock's position to come in so developed? And Griese goes, well, Brock has a lot of work to do. He had an unbelievable year, and he's like trying to give him credit, but then go into all the stuff he needs to do to get, because I think he's pushing back on the notion that Brock was developed. Like, no, Brock is not developed. I coached him, and we need to keep coaching him. So he keeps going. Tracy clarifies. She says, no, I mean more like the mental and emotional tools. And Griese goes, he has a very even demeanor, gives him all the credit for dealing with pressure and handling a veteran huddle. But then he says, he's had an unbelievable start to his career. Now there's a lot of things that Brock can and needs to get better at for this team to go where he wants to go, where we want to go. Brock and I, we've had that conversation. He's the first one to tell you, and that's normal for a young player. I'm excited to get him back. To me, it just feels like he's a little arrogant. Like, hey man, if we can do what we did with Brock, who frankly doesn't have the most overwhelming skill set, but he's poised, look what we can do with Sam Darnold. It's like, okay, wait a second. I think you're underselling Brock here. I think you're overselling Sam. And what about Trey? Like, didn't you get hired to coach Trey? It was that all felt a little strange to me. The whole Brian Griese love fest for Sam Darnold.
Do you have anything that he said about Trey and your guys?
Yeah.
What did he say about Trey?
So when asked about Trey, he kept talking about how proud he is that he didn't get too down and depressed after he got hurt and he stuck around the team. That's all he would say about Trey. Really proud of him, man. Really proud. He wasn't able to really accomplish anything on the field, but he accomplished something off the field. It was like really patronizing. To me, the lane that when he was asked about Trey with us, and I don't think it was my question, or maybe it was my question. He basically stuck to he was hurt.
No. He went to the he didn't. He stayed with it. He's working hard. He's staying with the. It seems like they're really committed on the let's
Good
talk
guy.
up the person. But nothing about
Good
it,
intentions.
nothing about his throw, nothing about his football, nothing about his development as a player. It's all about, man, he's really, credit him, he's put in the work.
He also didn't want to talk about the Jeff Christensen stuff. Like David Lombardi brought that up, and he was like, "Oh, like yeah, we talked to him about mechanics, a lot of things, but at the same time, you kind of just throw how you throw." It's like, so I think he was a little defensive about the fact that like, hey, whatever you've been doing with Trey hasn't been working, and he had to go to Jeff Christensen, and now you're like going to try to maintain what Christensen had been working on. He didn't want to talk about that. He really had nothing nice to, and it's like he has all these nice things to say about Sam Darnold. Oh, anyone can see the skill set. He just needs an environment that we have, and it's going to work. Like, what about Trey? Trey has a good skill set. You guys traded up for Trey. You guys have the environment. So if it's not working out for Trey, why is it just going to all of a sudden work out for Sam? He didn't put 2 and 2 together. And again, all he wanted to talk about with Brock was all the work Brock needs to do. Like, yeah, he's really good at, escaping pressure, but he really needs to work on rhythm and timing from the pocket. It's like, okay, Brian, like, I don't know. I saw you play quarterback, and I saw Brock Purdy play quarterback, and Brock Purdy was better than you. So why don't you be a little bit more enthusiastic, Brian? I don't like Brian. Brian Griese rubs me the wrong way. I'm so sorry, dude. Well, it's like he's dabbling in coaching. Is he even going to be here next year? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, okay, I'll give you my read on those things. One, on the Darnold, I kind of agree that a lot of Darnold's, a huge percentage of Darnold's turnovers have come on the Jets when he was behind, fourth quarter, trying to make something happen, and he's turning it over. And maybe if he's not in that situation, maybe his numbers look a little bit better. And he has thrown the ball well. But I mean,
wasn't he turning it over at USC though? I mean, they were winning.
Turning it over a lot at USC.
That's what I'm saying.
Turn it over a lot at USC.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
To me, that's why I'm not a big Darnold guy. Personally.
Yeah, me too.
I see a pattern of turnovers
and college.
Turnovers beget turnovers, in my opinion. It's kind of like some things translate. I think sack production, interception production, it translates. But guess what? Interceptions also, I think, travel with you. You're not going to turn it over a ton at SC and throw tons of picks, get into the NFL, and that's totally gone. But I do see there's upside potential on a much better team for Darnold, and Darnold does throw it well. Maybe with Purdy, he's just trying to dangle the carrot like, hey, you know what? This guy's not a star yet. This guy needs a lot of development. And, I'm going to basically be the guy who's going to be in charge of developing him. So let's all pump the brakes on Brock's arrived notion or idea. He's slapping that down because he's a teacher and they get ready to go to school. That's the way I look at it.
Also, I think he kind of admitted that the Niners and him don't really coach quarterbacks directly in the sense like Trey's the wrong quarterback for them. He needs direct coaching on accuracy and mechanics and stuff. And like, they don't have that coach. They don't have the Bobby Turner of quarterbacks or the Chris Forrester of quarterbacks or the Chris Kasarik of quarterbacks. Their way of making a quarterback better is coaching him indirectly, giving him a running back, right? Giving him Christian McCaffrey, giving him a defense, giving him a scheme. And that's what they're banking on with Darnold. Like, hey, he can throw. We don't have to teach him how to throw. All we need to do is give him a good environment because that's all we can do. We can't teach Trey. We brought in this project, and frankly, none of us know what to do with him. We're the wrong. That's basically what I'm hearing from Griese. Like, I don't know how to coach this guy, but thankfully, we don't have to coach Darnold. We just have to give Darnold a better environment. To which I say, baloney. Well, but we'll see.
It's all gonna. The beauty of this whole thing is there ain't no hiding come July and August, right? You either do or you don't, and you either step up and do it. But it is, to me, it's discouraging to hear. You throw the way you throw because when they drafted a kid who had 1 year of experience since high school, it was, you can read the reports of Lance Zierlein and others. I took out the report from the guy from The Athletic, Dane Brugler, and it says right there, black and white print, hey, this is somewhat of an unprecedented evaluation. He's somewhat of an unprecedented prospect, and you better have patience. And what it didn't say there, but it's obvious is that you better be able to develop him and bring him along. And do they have the Mike Holmgren on staff to bring him from A to B to C to D to get him there, or are they going to get off this train and then watch some other quarterback coach step in and maybe develop Trey into something? But I don't like hearing the way you throw is the way you throw because this kid needs to, this young man needs to evolve and needs to grow. And that's through reps, but it's also through refinement. And I think
Yeah.
that's probably what he's getting from Christensen. And it sounds like
and not getting from Griese.
Well, if
frankly.
you're the teacher
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, your students are progressing in the summertime when they go to a tutor and you're teaching them for 9 months, but man, they progress like crazy in 3 weeks with this tutor. I think the obvious points back at you going, how could he develop for 3 weeks well?
Thank you.
And he didn't develop for 9 months well.
Thank you.
And so there's a little like, I think everybody's kind of battling for position under the boards on this one.
Yeah. And look, like, let's just back up. So Griese was brought in last year when the idea was this is Trey's team. He's the future. I mean, they did these interviews last year. My Brian Griese interview is still up. They didn't have an issue with him talking last year. Last year, he literally said that he didn't study Trey Lance before he got the job, that he had 2 to 3 days to make a decision. Like, they fast-tracked him into this job. He'd never been a coach before in his life. I don't understand why they hired him. I mean, I'm sure he does certain things well, but he has no history coaching, and he didn't know the first thing about Lance when they hired him. So it's like, he's not here for Lance. He's here to learn Kyle's system and maybe become an offensive coordinator somewhere and be part of his tree. I don't even get it. But if you wanted Trey Lance to work, you should have brought in the best quarterback coach you could find, someone with a track record of success like Bobby Turner has, like Chris Kasarik has, like Johnny Holland has. Like, where is that guy? You don't have him. You have Clint Kubiak, who's 37. You have Clay Kubiak, who's like 31, and Brian Griese, a first year. Like, and so that's why he gravitates to guys like Purdy. He's like Purdy. Nothing, Purdy's better than him, but that's a guy he can identify with. He can't identify with Trey Lance. How can he help Trey Lance be a better version of Trey Lance when he's Brian Griese? I just don't get it. I'm sorry. I'm going on a rant.
Well, no, I mean, it comes right down to there's a lot of offensive coaches in the NFL that don't develop players. It's all about winning games, calling plays, sequencing plays, working on a game plan. And it's not every quarterback that needs lots and lots of development, but they drafted a quarterback that was the most raw quarterback that coming out of college in 40 years. I mean, that should have been like, guys, this isn't like that guy, this guy, that. None of us have ever seen a prospect like this with the upside, but also with the refinement necessary. How are we going to help refine this player? And I really don't like hearing he throws the way he throws, because that takes. I mean, that's like a teacher saying, "Hey, you know what? He learns the way he learns." No, you're the teacher. You got to bring him along. So there's there's been weird vibes. Let's just say that there's been weird dialogue around Trey all off season. There's been weird vibes. I don't know. To be honest, I couldn't sit here and tell you how they feel about him, or how they feel about him short-term, long-term, or what their plan is. And that's amazing to me because we're there all the time.
It's just so obvious to me that Griese's not invested in Trey. It is painfully obvious that Griese's not invested in Trey. He says stuff like, I'm so proud of him. Like, he's a Make-A-Wish kid that just wandered into the organization. Like, he's invested in Brock. He helped pick Brock. He's invested in Sam, clearly. He's talking about how good he can be and why he needs to be here. But Trey, it's like, yeah, man, what a good guy who's here for now. Like, and that's too bad. It seemed like the only person, like, remember, when they drafted Trey, it was a mystery to everyone, including most of the people in the organization. It was Kyle's secret. He sprung it on the whole world. We're taking Trey. No one else was invested in the decision except for him. Now, is he even invested in Trey Lance? Like, who in this organization is super behind Trey Lance? I couldn't name one person. And that's too bad. That means that Trey's not going to work out here. It doesn't mean that Trey won't work out. But if that's the case, if this is how the quarterback coach feel, like, it's not going to work out for Trey here. He can't do this all by himself. He legitimately needs a good coach who's in his corner. I'm sorry. Every young quarterback needs that. Brock has it. Apparently Sam Darnold has it now.
Everybody does need an advocate, but it's also, things have shifted from, you know what, it's all about Trey and developing Trey, to it's all about getting it done and winning and everything else. It's like, you develop on your own, show up and be ready. And maybe we're simplifying it. Maybe there's an awful lot of instruction going on behind the scenes, and maybe they're bringing him along. But I'll say this. I almost feel like I'd love to sit there and just say, hey, you know what? Without telling me about his effort or his character, tell me what you like about the player. and I'd love to hear what comes out of anybody's
Oh
mouth.
my God.
On there.
Yeah.
Don't tell me
like that.
with no mention of his character, because we all know the character's strong. We all know. The effort's been done. We get it. Tell me about his football. Tell me about where he is football-wise, and let's put the cards on the table and say it for what it is. Let's stop either trying to protect trade value or feelings or anything else. I don't want to know about his character because I know about his character. I don't want to filibuster about his work ethic. I want to know about his football.
And if you want to pump up his trade value, say something nice. If you can't say anything nice about him in terms of his football skill set, why is he on the team? Cut him. Trade him for a 7th-round pick, because clearly you're not worried about him going somewhere else and being good, right? It seems like to me that the Niners are in this limbo of, we don't think he's good, but we also know that we're not good at evaluating quarterbacks or coaching them. So we're afraid that he'll go somewhere else and a better coach will have success with him. Like, okay, so if you're afraid a better coach will have success with him, then coach him.
I just feel like
one of the other. Cut him, keep him.
I feel like they want to stick to a line that they can defend forever, which is, hey, if I speak about his character, I'm on solid ground because I believe in his character. If I talk about his process and his work ethic, I can stick to that. And it will last well over time because that's real. But when it comes to his processing, his throwing, his ball handling, his play action fakes, everything that goes along with playing the position of quarterback, if I comment on that, I'm on the record. My professional opinion is on the record, and I got to stand behind that. And I don't feel comfortable standing behind that, so I'm not even going there. That's what I'm reading out of that.
The other thing he kept saying was the mechanical issues for Trey are overblown because the finger really messed everything up. It's like, yeah, the finger messed things up, but the mechanical issues aren't overblown. Okay? That's why he's going to Jeff Christensen, all right? Jeff Christensen didn't say the mechanical issues are overblown. He said it took him 4 days to figure out all the things that were wrong. So if he says that and Brian Griese says they're overblown, I'm thinking Brian Griese, again, not a good coach. Wasn't it? I mean, look, he was an NFL player. I'll give him credit for that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that at 47, 48 years old, he can just hop off the couch and say, I'll give this a try. I don't know. But not with this kind of a project.
Before we condemn Griese, I mean, I know, but I hear you. But look what they got out of a rookie quarterback. Now, how much of that was him? How much of that was Brock's inherent skills?
Well, Brian would want you to think it was him. Brian would want you to think it was him.
But it could be. Yes. It also could be him.
Maybe.
Right? It could be him. I mean, they did get an awful lot. I'll say this too. Under Brian Griese last year, what did we actually get? I felt, and maybe I'm wrong, but I felt like we got the best that we had ever seen out of Jimmy Garoppolo, and we got an unprecedented success out of a 7th round. I mean,
was it Brian or was it Christian McCaffrey?
Even if it was one,
Christian McCaffrey is the quarterback coach on this team.
Well, no, but before even McCaffrey got there, one thing that we got last year out of Garoppolo is the eradication of the negative plays for the most part, because he was throwing that ball into the turf instead of floating that ball in the middle of the field.
You know what Griese taught him to do?
He was a little bit more disciplined.
You know what Griese taught him to do? When you throw the pick six, step out of the back of the end zone first so it doesn't count. So it's a safety instead of a pick six. Yeah. No, you're right, man. Hey, look, I don't want to completely disregard Griese because I don't know.
I thought Garoppolo played his best football because I felt like there was now. Obviously, McCaffrey had a huge impact, and also
that helps.
And it's not that it didn't have a factor. As soon as McCaffrey was there, then you had a safety valve that after he surveyed the field, he could dump it to McCaffrey, and he saved a lot of negative plays. Instead of 0 yards,
forcing it over the middle,
they got 4 yards off a dump off to McCaffrey. So that helped Garoppolo. But I think Garoppolo's just mindset of throw it away. Go to the next play, like Brady, like Griese, like Rodgers, like so many great quarterbacks. It seemed like he finally kind of cleared that, what I call
Rich Scangarello never got around to teaching how to throw the ball away. Rich Scangarello was awful.
Well, I mean, Jimmy's a great competitor, and it's like part of the mindset of like, hey man, I'm hell bent to make a play is a great mindset for a quarterback. But you're not going if you have 70 offensive snaps in a game, you ain't making 70 plays. There's going to be some negative plays. Throw that ball away. Let me get
back to Brock though. So I feel like he's trying to take credit for Brock. But the way I saw it was all of Brock's best plays were Brock freelancing last year. That's what we all loved about Brock. Brock spinning left, Brock running left, running right, running left, running right, throwing the eye. Like that stuff had nothing to do with Brian Griese. What Brian Griese needed to teach Brock Purdy was to step up in the pocket. That's what he needed to teach him. And clearly he didn't get the message. I mean, no offense to Brock, but his coach threw him under the bus immediately after the game. So he should have stepped up in the pocket. Well, Brian, that's something you could have had a drill on. The drill they do in practice, Jose Batista says, Larry says Lance airmails the warm-up guy. True. It does happen sometimes. It often happens in that opening drill where they have the pads underneath their feet and they're shuffling back and forth, left and right. You know what I'm talking about? I hate that drill. I hate that drill because Trey's issue is he overstrides. So right off, the first drill of the day, you have him overstriding. Left and right, left and right, left and right, and throwing across the field like, yeah, man, you're reinforcing all of his bad habits. Way to go, Brian Griese. Way to go.
Way to go. The one thing I've seen is I feel like he drops the elbow a little bit on some of the stuff to the, the 10, 12 yard sideline pass. And when you drop the elbow, he's now not on top of the ball. He's under the ball and the ball's sailing and it's sailing 3-4 yards beyond and it's way high. To me, that's the only thing that I see on that. He seems like mechanically he's not on top of the ball. He's kind of, as soon as he's moving it from the side, the ball kind of takes off, and it is because he's more high than low on the sideline pass. He's not firing that one into the ground. He's firing the one into the ground where he's ripping it in the middle of the field with a lot of arm speed. The sideline passes he's airmailing.
Yeah, I mean, not consistently. It happens a lot in that. I'm just telling you, like it happens a lot in that initial drill with the pads underneath. Watch it. I'm telling you, it reinforces all of his bad habits. It reinforces all of his bad habits. And maybe there is some good to come out of that drill for other quarterbacks, but for him, I think it's bad, especially to start the day like that. Whatever, but that's Brian Griese's problem. Sorry.